my song.
All of Jessica Leia's music that you hear on Me and My Song is available for purchase online. And now, please enjoy the show.
Once upon a time, I realized that I was completely alone, trapped inside of a body prison. And that's why this month's song, Trapped Inside, was ever even born. Sometimes you may put a pen to paper at some point in your life and say, there, that's the moment when I wrote this song.
Oh, yeah.
When in actuality, it is a song that has been writing itself for your entire life. This month's song, Trapped Inside, is more like one of them been writing it all of your life throughout your life kind of songs. But I do remember the exact moment in my life when this month's song started writing itself. I wasn't more than 7 years old, and I know because in that moment when this song started writing itself, I was sitting on the steps of my parents' bedroom, and that bedroom hadn't been built until I was about 6 or 7 years old. And this song was born when my little girl self had had enough. Enough! I was done. I wanted to die.
Okay.
I really had been constantly trying to communicate that as my little girl self, mostly by constantly crying and screaming all the time. Nobody really seemed to give a shit.
Oh.
I know they heard it because they made fun of it, made up songs about it and everything.
Put your tongue with it, you put your bottom without. You do the Jesse Wesley and you cry and whine out. That's what it's all about. Jesse Wesley.
It's a wonder I'm not traumatized by music, really. I love my family, by the way. They're the best. They're the best people in the world. They're my favorite people. But I had decided in that moment, just before I went to sit down on the stairs that led into my parents' bedroom at the time, that I was gonna lay it all out on the line. That as an alternative to suicide, I was gonna reach out to them, let it all hang out about what was going on inside. After all, I needed someone to help me because I wanted to die.
Okay.
I laughed because otherwise I would cry. So I gathered all of my gumph as I approached them, and I sat down on those 2 steps that led into their bedroom, and I just started telling them everything, the torments of my little girl life. I couldn't stand that people were always dying, and then my brothers were so cruel to me. I can't do this anymore. I can't handle all the scary things that come after me at night.
I don't ever want to get up for school. I have to fight the boys, and the girls think I'm weird. Nobody cares about me, and nobody listens to me. I feel like nobody loves me, and I don't want to live. I just want to die.
I had put out my cry for help. Maybe someone would finally understand what it was like for me inside, what was going on inside in my little girl world. And once I had finished saying my piece, I sat there wiping my snot, and there was a moment of silence. And I watched as my mother shot a glance towards my father. It was a look of total annoyance and irritation. And she looked back at me and said,
I think somebody needs a nap.
I love my parents, by the way. Salt of the earth. Some of my favorite people. Wouldn't trade them for a thing. But that was the moment it hit me. That moment is so vivid in my memory because that's when it hit me so hard. Like a ton of bricks, as they say. It hit me in that very moment that I was completely alone in here. Completely alone inside. That no one,
No one.
no matter how close they were to me in any capacity, was ever going to know or understand what I was experiencing on the inside. What was going on in here? No one ever could know, ever, because all of that stuff was going on inside of me, and nobody else could ever be in here except for me. So I was trapped inside myself, trapped inside my own body prison. I was an island, and I was trapped on that island with all of my fear and all of my pain and all of my desperation, with no way to escape. After realizing that, I did like any good human does, and I took all of that pain and that fear and that desperation, and I shoved it down as deep inside as it could possibly go. And then I kept soldiering on. And this month's song, Trapped Inside, began to write itself. Fast forward, plus or minus another 15 years, and I found myself yet again undone by this world. I was a wreck. More death, more heartache, more planet Earth bullshit that I just couldn't stand.
Okay.
And I was still pretty young, but I was old enough to start recognizing the patterns in my life that seemed to keep having me going on these loop-de-loos.
Loop-de-loop-de-loos.
And leading me to the same suffering over and over and over again. And I wanted off the damn hamster wheel. So at that time, I reached out to the Buddha for help.
Excuse me. Could you please help me?
I was reading Buddhist books, and I went to Buddhist meditation retreat centers. I really delved into it, like figure out what it's all about. So during that particular time in my life, I was using Buddhism to help me work through my shit. In Buddhism, you're taught to just sit with yourself.
Hello there.
And to sit with your feelings. And no matter what comes up, to just let it come up and through. So you just don't identify yourself with those thoughts and those feelings. Just let it all be what it is and recognize that it's not you. So I was doing just that during this particularly challenging time in my life when this month's song, Trapped Inside, was continuing to write itself. I was just relaxing there, letting whatever came up to come up and through, making sure that I didn't attach to it. And wouldn't you know,
What?
all that pain and fear and desperation that I had so long ago shoved so far deep down inside of myself started swelling up to the surface of my conscious awareness. I remembered my Buddhist training. And I knew I should just let it come. And woo-hoo! Hold on to your hat, folks, that I let it come. But it pulled a fast one on me. See, because I'd become so good at my compartmentalization, shoved things deep down inside of me, stupid human tricks, that I had hidden things for myself that I couldn't even remember that I forgot. What? See, because letting it all come up will bring you right back there again.
Where you say?
Well, right back to that very moment in time when you shoved it all deep down inside, including that moment I had had as a little girl when this month's song, Trapped Inside, started writing itself. See, the thing that I wasn't expecting when I was doing my Buddhist meditation, just let it all come up technique, that fear that I had shoved deep down inside, all of the multiple layers of pain and fear and desperation, and all conglomerated inside of that cesspool, inside of the pit of despair. What I wasn't expecting was the horror of horrors in my own little personal house of horrors.
The fear of all fears.
Something that was so horrible that I wouldn't even never let my conscious mind recognize that it was a fear that it felt, even when it was feeling it. What? And that was the completely horrifying gargantuan of a fear that it would never end. That all of the fear and the pain and the desperation would never, ever end. And that I would be trapped inside with it for as long as we both shall live. And I could not stand to feel that fear, and I could not stand to stay there with it, and I could not identify with it. And suddenly a dog barked outside, and I jolted myself out of that terrifying experience of a Buddhist meditation. Where that horrific fear was just lying in wait for me. And I did like any good, normal human would do. And I shoved it deep down inside as far as it could possibly go. And feeling fairly certain that death would be the only true release from my imprisonment, I went over immediately to the paper calendar on my bedroom wall. Did some quick math about how long the average lifespan is, and I figured out how many days I had left to live inside of my prison, assuming I made it to the average lifespan, which was at that time about 80 years old. I figured about 20,000 days. I can handle that. And I grabbed that paper calendar off my wall, and I shit you not, I wrote down the countdown inside of every little box on that paper calendar that represented every little day left of my little life. The countdown until the liberating moment of my death. Yes. I tried finding that calendar because I figured it'd be fun to show you, because I like to hang on to old calendars sometimes. I have some vague recollection of burning it in some ceremony that I did years later. I don't know. It was probably some ceremony where I decided to focus on living instead of on dying. Anyway, I also, the next day, went out and purchased a book calendar so I could be sure to fill in every single one of those days in that book calendar with as much possible stuff as was possible, so that I would be so busy that I would never slow down long enough for that horrible, horrible fear to ever catch up with me again. And so that my days would go by even quicker as I was running around doing things, so that I could make the countdown to my death, to my moment of liberation from my pain, come even faster. Genius, huh? It's brilliant. That calendar I did happen to keep.
Oh, yeah. Lots of stuff to do. Every day.
Oh yeah, we even got some highlighted stuff. Oh man, tons of stuff.
Whoa, look at that. Even the next year, tons of stuff.
Fill her up, Joe! And this month's song, Trapped Inside, kept writing itself. Fast forward another 15 years or so, plus or minus, another 15 years closer to the liberating moment of my death. And I found myself yet again in another challenging time of my life. More death, more heartache. But this time, I reached out to shamanism, to plant medicine, to hallucinogens for help. You know, instead of like my parents or the Buddha.
Excuse me. Could you please help me?
But unfortunately, the hallucinogens made my brain crack. Or maybe that's fortunate, depending on how you look at it. See, 'cause that's when this month's song, Trapped Inside, finally finished writing itself. When everything came full circle. When suddenly that fear that was always there started rearing its ugly head again. You know, that fear that all of the fear and the pain and the desperation would never, ever end. Yeah, remember that one? And because all of those hallucinogens had completely splattered my brain, I had lost my capacity to shove it deep down inside. I totally, completely lost all of my defense mechanisms, my ability to compartmentalize, because my brain was not functioning the way that it had been functioning in the past. All the fear and the pain and the desperation, it was just there. I could not run from it. It followed me everywhere, all the time when I was awake, all the time when I was asleep, even when I was in between awake and asleep. That really pissed me off, by the way. And all the walls that I had built in my brain to compartmentalize all of the fears and the pains and the desperations into different closed-off sections with different closed-off doors, well, all those walls had just been obliterated. And there was no place to hide anything. And there was no place to run where the fear was not. Nowhere to run to, baby. Nowhere to hide. I'll tell you what, I never had a clue how many defense mechanisms I have until they were all completely stripped away from me. It made me realize that you cannot function in this matrix without defense mechanisms. Fortunately, I was able to reattain my ability to compartmentalize, and I was able to regain all my defense mechanisms.
Huh?
Yay! But at that point in my life, I'd been around the block enough to recognize all of that fear and that pain and that desperation for what it was. And I was able to work through it, to sit with it, because I had no other choice. And it was very uncomfortable for what seemed like a very long time. It was a long time. It was very uncomfortable for a very long time. For a pretty long time. It was very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. And this month's song, Trapped Inside, was finalized during that period of time, and it helped me to spell out for myself what I had been doing for my entire life. Quickly running towards death in hopes that that would be my escape from all of the fear and the pain and the desperation of which I was trying to run from every single day so that it could never catch up with me, so that it would never bubble up again in those quiet moments when I stopped running. So that I could try and never notice that I was terrified of being trapped inside with it forever. Trapped inside the prison of this body with that fear as my only cellmate. Please enjoy the raw reveal of Trapped Inside. Run, run for your life. Won't notice you're trapped inside. Run, run till you die.
If you're gonna get warm and fuzzy enjoying the work that I do here on Me and My Song, please go ahead and do all of the things that help independent artists like myself get our work out there. You know, like liking and subscribing, spreading the word, spreading the love, thumbs upping. Well, whatever you do, the most important thing in the whole wide world that I think you should do, no matter if it's out of style, out of range, or out of tune, you have got to, even when it's really, really hard to do, keep singing your song. Me and my song.